it was mainly Iran that got agent provocateurs to go and say, hey, we're going to rush this building. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Iran doesn't have aircraft carriers. Iran can't power project with a navy or with bombers. So how do they power project? Well, they use the internet to get college students to do it for them.
All right, guys. First intelligence alienalist on the podcast and first guest to drink on the show live, Ryan McBeth. Thanks for coming on. Cheers. I would join you, but I got a few more episodes after this.
I would love that. I actually got a gift for you.
Wow, that's a first too. Holy crap.
I always like to come bringing presents.
Damn.
So
what is this? Old Bay seasoning.
Old Bay seasoning.
Wow.
It is. I am not the only great thing to come out of Maryland. Old Bay seasoning's got me beat.
Dude, I actually love crab, so.
You know what? You put that on popcorn. Popcorn. You can put that on shrimp. Yeah, I put it on popcorn all the time.
Wow.
Old Bay seasoning is absolutely amazing.
Damn. Shout out to Old Bay. Well, you're busy these days. A lot of disinformation going up, right?
Oh my God. I do disinformation. I do podcasts. I have to get videos out, and then I travel. I speak. I'm actually speaking. After I leave Las Vegas, I have to go to Camp Perry, Ohio. And I'm going to talk with a bunch of JAG lawyers. I'm going to give them a briefing on something called deceptive imagery persuasion, which is a type of disinformation. And these lawyers are going to come up with a plan to perhaps start figuring out how we can kinetically strike disinformation actors.
Right. And why are you so passionate about the disinformation?
So, I think that it is a hybrid method of warfare. And we never really encountered it before. If somebody, let's say somebody wants to take out a bridge, right? A couple of ways you could do it. You could use a bomb to destroy that bridge, right? Or you could maybe do a cyber attack to shut down the toll systems on that bridge, right? And so maybe people can't cross because of the toll systems. Or you could tell people, hey, Taiwan has always been Chinese. This America defending Taiwan is an imperialist, colonialist effort to get at Taiwan's resources and deny them their true purpose of being Chinese. So go to the Golden Gate Bridge and glue yourself to the deck of the Golden Gate Bridge for China. And now, what do you have? You have a weapon system. You just shut down the bridge. No different than a missile or a cyber attack, right?
Wow.
So we need to start considering these disinformation agents, these bot farms, we need to start considering them enemy combatants, and we need to kill them. I am very blunt about that. We need to kill them. That might look like a tomahawk strike on the building where they work out of. It might be a cyber attack. It might be a strike on the data center. It might be close up and personal, just targeting certain individuals.
Right.
But if you are a foreign actor and you are part of a disinformation campaign, you need to be targeted just like any other combatant. If you were working at a munitions plant, let's say you're a person, you're making shells at an enemy munitions plant. Are you a combatant? You're a valid target, right? Right? But if you're working at a factory that produces disinformation to help win the war for your side, are you a combatant?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to find that out.
So there's actual farms where there's buildings dedicated towards this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. There's buildings. There used to be one in St. Petersburg, the Internet Research Agency, which was run by Viktor Prigozhin, which was the guy who started Wagner. And essentially, that was a huge bot farm that distributed, of all things, election information. That was one of the things they did, election misinformation. And the whole idea was, can we use misinformation or disinformation? And there is a difference between the two. Can we use these two things to physically affect something on the ground? And one example they gave was they found webcams that looked at Times Square, and they said, hey, Nathan's is giving out free hot dogs in Times Square. And they watched as people came, and there was no free hot dog cart. But they were like, wow, look what we can do. Now this is a weapon.
Dang. So do you think countries are actively engaging in this?
Yeah, absolutely. China is. Russia is. China is. Iran is. Iran, those protests, those pro-Hamas protests where you had college students, which I never thought I'd see in my life. You have college students who are usually pretty in tune to human rights, supporting a group of people who don't believe in human rights, if you're a woman or you're LGBTQ, right? It was mainly Iran that got agent provocateurs to go and say, hey, we're going to rush this building. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Iran doesn't have aircraft carriers. Iran can't power project with a navy or with bombers. So how do they power project? Well, they use the internet to get college students to do it for them.
Yeah,
and that's how you can cause chaos.
I never know with these wars of all these things I see on Twitter, how much of it is real or misinformation.
That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
a lot of people don't, and I think one of the big problems is that you have to be a generalist, and today everyone's a specialist. Like, what are you good at? Like, what are you really good at? Doing podcasts, right? Yeah. You must be good at that. You got 1 million followers. You're popular. You're good at that. Probably not too good on raising chickens.
No.
Right? So what do? Well, you buy chicken from the store, right? Because you have a specialist that goes and does that.
Right.
150 years ago, people knew how to raise chickens. They knew how to do a little bit of farming. They probably knew a little bit of carpentry, right? Mm-hmm. If you need a carpenter, what do? You probably call one, right?
Yep.
So today, there is so much information out there that needs a specialization for you to understand that you can easily mislead people by showing a picture. I call this deceptive imagery persuasion. You show a picture and put false text on top of it. Look at Israel using white phosphorus against civilians. But what you're showing is a flare, which is an illumination round that hangs by a parachute and lights up the area. But to the average person, they don't really know what white phosphorus looks like, so that must be white phosphorus. Or if you hate Israel, you might easily go, oh, yes, that's white phosphorus. Share. Look at Israel killing children with white phosphorus. And there's a flare.
Yeah. So what do you think the fix would be? Because I know Twitter has their own system. I don't know if other social media platforms have their...
I actually developed a 5-step process, and I made it open source as well. It's on my GitHub. Honestly, one of the ways you can fix it, and Twitter could do this tomorrow. It would take 2 sprints. So we're talking about a month's worth of software work. What Twitter could do tomorrow is they could use something called vector maps. So essentially, when you see an image, you put that image in a database and you know where that image came from. Mm-hmm. And so later on, when someone uses that image or an image that's similar to it, even if that image has been altered a little bit, you're going to be able to detect that. And you can throw up a community note that says, hey, this image was initially used at this date and this was the context. And that would solve maybe 90%
Wow.
of the but Twitter they'll never do that.
Why not?
It'll cost them money. It'll cost them money. Like, they need misinformation. Twitter needs misinformation. Twitter needs disinformation. They need people to post provocative stuff that's wrong, because that's how they get engagement. That's how they get clicks. That's how they get eyeballs.
That's true. Some of the most viral tweets I've seen have been later debunked.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've debunked a ton of them.
Yeah. It seems like I could make a living just off doing Twitter, right? Like, I need to make a video. Crap, let me look. Oh, all right, there's this guy right here.
You're doing one a day, right?
I try. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 videos a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I work between 13 and 16 hours a day.
Holy crap.
You work pretty hard too, man.
Yeah, I know. But you're coming at people. I mean, you're not afraid to make enemies. I like that about you.
No, and a lot of it is, I'm almost 50. I'm a little bit older, maybe than the average listener, and I carry a gun, right? And you can't. I spent 20 years as an infantryman. What do you got? I was deployed. I was in Iraq. I was an infantryman in frickin' Iraq. I used to drove down roads that insurgents really didn't want us to drive down, right? What am I going to be afraid of? Are you going to come at me? Please. Give it your best shot.
Yeah, you got some experience. Were the drones around back then when you were serving? The military drones?
Yeah, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, drones played an incredible part in Overwatch, like watching over soldiers as they were moving, in route clearance. So you might have a drone fly ahead of a convoy and they're looking at the ground, and they have thermal cameras. So when the sun comes up, it heats up the road. But if you have something buried under there, that dirt has been disturbed, that heats up at a different rate. You might have a metal canister in there.
Oh, wow.
So underneath that dirt, there's a metal canister.
So a drone could detect that?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you'll go, hey, there's something suspicious here. We need to send the engineers to go take a look at it. EOD, take a look at it.
Wow. So they're that advanced.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And now they've only gotten more advanced. And the drones that we have today are great against fighting a bunch of dudes in sandals that can't really shoot back. What we need to think about now are drone swarms and how we can move forward with the kind of either commercial off-the-shelf drones or drones that have a little bit of AI that can use swarming technology to talk to each other. And we also need to take drone operators seriously. One of the things that I've advocated for, I give a lot of speeches.
So you made a whole video about UFOs.
I did make a whole video about UFOs. I knew this was coming. I actually don't think that we've ever been visited by anyone. I ran it through the same process I would use using the CIA's tool, which is called ICD 203, the Intelligence Community Directive 203, which kind of looks at the likelihood or probability. And one of the reasons I don't believe we've been visited by aliens is that the distances are so great and the amount of energy it would take to get here is so vast that there'd be really no reason to do it at all. And the only reason I could picture aliens coming here would be to kill us, to wipe us out. And that's because it is too dangerous. If you find an alien civilization, it is too dangerous to let that alien civilization live because they might be able to come after you one day and they might not show any mercy. You take a look at the Native Americans, when the Spanish landed in the New World, the Spanish very quickly killed like 90% of the Native Americans in America, either through disease or through war, right? So if the Native Americans just killed every single Spanish dude getting off those ships as they were getting off, they probably would still be to have a civilization today, right? So one of the main reasons that I don't think we've been visited by aliens is that we're still alive. And probably the biggest reason to come here would be to wipe us out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you looked into all those situations where there's UFO visits and Roswell and all that?
I can usually I haven't looked into those things specifically. I actually did a specific video about government testimony. This was, I think it was David Fravor was testifying. And, at any given time, I think that if you look at a computer software error, like a radar error, or you look at what a human being says they saw, you got to go with the error. Right. Every time.
Well, the government released these files. I don't know if you watched the videos at all, but it didn't seem compelling to me. It was blurry.
No, one of the things I've often said is, did you ever hear of the documentary Sour Grapes?
No.
So there was this Netflix documentary where this dude forged wine. So he would essentially say, hey, I have these bottles from 1942 in France, and he would sell them, and people would drink them, and then one day, like, people realized he was a fraud because, this one vineyard owner said, hey, my family didn't make any bottles in 1944 because the Nazis had occupied France, so your bottle can't be real. So I think that, despite the evidence that you might have, it's kind of like this guy Rudy who used to fake the wine. Like, you might think you have a real bottle, but it can't be real.
Got it. Interesting. Now, you've been in the AI space for a while.
Yeah.
What % chance is there that it turns haywire, goes Matrix, Terminator mode, and AI takes over?
I would say there is a 0% chance of that unless we make it do that.
Wow.
We have
0%.
killer robots now, and those killer. So if you look at the Aegis system, which is on every cruiser and destroyer in America's Navy, or if you look at the Patriot system, Aegis system, those are killer robots, and they've been killer robots since the 1980s, and we're fine. And all of those, the Aegis system, it can detect enemy planes or missiles. You flip that thing into automatic mode, it'll talk with the other ships. That way, you don't put 2 missiles on each target and stuff like that. It knows what every other ship is doing. You set it in automatic mode, and it just fires.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it locks onto the target?
Everything. It does
Holy crap.
everything. It decides what engagement scenario to use. It decides what kind of weapon to use to service that particular target. because humans just can't react that fast.
Wow. So humans not firing the missile. It's actually the machine.
Yeah, it's the machine. You can put it in manual mode, but it's the machine. You put it in auto mode and just.
And has it ever made a mistake?
So the Aegis system once destroyed an Iranian jet in the Persian Gulf, but we let it do that. We let it go into that mode because we saw this radar reflection and we're like, that's probably an Iranian F-14. Turned out it was an Iranian civilian passenger liner. And we let it go into automated mode, but it didn't make the mistake. We made the mistake.
So it still was a human error.
It still was a human error thing.
Interesting.
I actually think AI is, in a lot of ways, AI can help prevent human error. Because believe it or not, soldiers make mistakes all the time. Soldiers hit the wrong target, or they don't really know what is that. I don't know. Screw it, shoot it. Right? Soldiers do that all the time, either because they're scared, or they're tired, or they just got the wrong information. AI, if you give AI training data of what a Russian T-72 tank looks like, it has a better chance of recognizing that tank because it doesn't get tired.
Wow.
It doesn't get scared. Right?
That's interesting.
And so if AI can draw boxes around tanks for us, I mean, that's a force multiplier inside a tank. You're inside a tank and your optics are looking and going, okay, I know the thermal profile of that. That's a T-72. Draw a box around that. And then you can let the human decide to service it. Or you can let the AI decide to do it.
Imagine an AI sniper.
I mean, so look, I know when I see, I was in Iraq. Like, I know what's a threat. A farmer with a rifle, and it's on his back, and there's a bunch of sheep around him. Do you shoot that guy? No. He's just a farmer. He's got he's afraid of wolves, right? He's going to shoot wolves. He's not, he's no threat to you. You can program AI the same way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Speaking of all these weapons, let's talk nuclear weapons. So how many countries do you think have nuclear weapons right now?
So right now, it's the United States, Russia, France, the UK, China, Pakistan, India, North Korea. South Africa had them, but then they destroyed them. And Israel may or may not have them.
Okay, so about 9.
Roughly 9.
Why did South Africa destroy theirs?
They didn't need them any. They did it during apartheid, and I think that they were like a last-ditch weapon if they were ever invaded by a country. Let's say if there was an internal struggle, they might use a nuclear weapon. But keeping a nuclear weapon around is an expensive thing.
Is it?
Well, of course. I mean, look, you have to have all the security around these nuclear weapons. You have to have, and it's not like these things have a bicycle lock on them, right? There's different codes, or called permissive action links. There's different codes that you have to enter to get this nuclear weapon to actually explode, right?
Yeah. Is it true the president has a button?
So it's not a button. It's more like inside what's called the football, which is this briefcase that's carried by an aide, usually an Air Force aide. Inside this briefcase, there's literally a Denny's menu.
What?
Yeah, it's not a Denny's menu, but it looks like a Denny's menu. And so we have all these op plans, all of these scenarios and packages for what you, just kind of like Denny's, like, all right, I'll have eggs from column A and I'll have bacon from column B, right? So let's say Iran launches a nuclear weapon at Saudi Arabia and destroys Mecca, right? We might respond to that. We might say, all right, let me look at the op plan. And there might be an op plan for what happens if Iran destroys Mecca. And we'll go, okay, we're going to fire nuclear weapons at these 4 targets. This is what's in the Denny's menu. So it's not an actual button, but there's codes and there's essentially a menu. So you just give the person at NORAD the menu number and they go from there.
So if World War III happens, which some people think we're in it now, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Is there a % that it could go nuclear, you think?
There's always a percentage chance that it could. I don't believe it will. And I say that because in order for, usually a nuclear exchange would stem from using tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield. So there's a difference between a tactical nuclear weapon and a strategic nuclear weapon. A strategic nuclear weapon is a city buster, right? That's designed to destroy entire cities. And typically, the scenario kind of goes that someone might use a nuclear weapon on the battlefield to do something like destroy a troop concentration, or there's troops who are breaking through the enemy's lines. You might use a nuclear weapon over top of that to stop them. Using nuclear weapons against American aircraft carrier strike groups. That is a valid use case for a nuclear weapon. It would be really good if China wanted to destroy American carrier groups. Getting a nuclear weapon through, that would do it. That would help. You might also use a nuclear weapon to destroy an underground command bunker or any kind of facilities that are underground. Iran has a lot of those. And one of the things that we've done with our nuclear inventory is we've changed it so that it can penetrate into the ground and then explode. Yeah. Or destroying an amphibious assault group. So that's actually one of the reasons I don't believe Russia will ever use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, because China is deathly afraid that the second Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, it makes it easier for the United States to use a nuclear weapon against an amphibious group going into Taiwan.
Got it. So it's kind of like who wants to pull the trigger first, right?
And nobody does.
Right.
So I don't really see a nuclear war stemming from what's going on in Ukraine. It's just that nobody wins.
Right.
Nobody wins that. And while there are valid use cases, I mean, Ukraine actually broke through Russian lines into Russia. They're, I think, about 40 miles from the city of Kursk.
Really? So Ukraine's
Ukraine invaded Russia north of Sumy, south of Kursk.
Oh, I didn't even see this anywhere.
Yeah, it happened about 3 days. So at first I thought it was a raid. Ukraine's done this twice.
Yeah.
Where they've entered Russia and they've done some stuff, and it's just a way of saying we can come toward you anytime we want. Somehow, from what I understand from the intel that I have, 2 brigades. So think of it like 5,000 people, 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers entered. And right now there's a front of like 70 miles. So typically to cover a front of 70 miles, you need like 2.5 divisions. Think of a division as like 3 or 4 brigades, or like 10,000 troops. So I don't know what Ukraine's goal is in that. But I could theoretically see Russia using a nuclear weapon to stop their advance, but then they're using it on their soil. They don't want to do that. Right.
The radiation.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want. Well, if you do an airburst, there'll be less radiation, but it's still going to freak people out. There's just no advantage to using a nuclear weapon.
Damn. So all our tax dollars going to Ukraine are working.
Oh my God, like you wouldn't believe. One of the biggest advantages of supporting Ukraine is that our equipment, we have to pay to dispose of it. Rockets, things like HIMARS missiles, TOW missiles, Javelin missiles, Stinger missiles. The rocket fuel in them actually expires, has a certain shelf life.
Oh, wow.
And artillery shells are a little bit better. You can make an artillery shell, and you can put it on a shelf. As long as you store it in a cool, dry place, it'll last for decades. But rocket fuel is a little bit different. So you have to shoot it after a certain number of years or it goes bad, and you have to send it back, and then they send it back to Raytheon, and then they have to put it into a room, and they have to demill it. Like they take the rocket apart, and it becomes hazardous waste. It's just easier to shoot the darn thing, right?
Yeah.
So once when I was a heavy weapons anti-tank guy, and I made friends with this guy from Raytheon who came to train us on some stuff, and he gave me his card. He's like, "Listen, anytime you want to shoot missiles, let me know."
What an invite!
Because we got all these. One time, I think we fired 21 TOW missiles,
Holy
21
crap.
anti-tank missiles in one day. I never thought I'd get sick of shooting anti-tank missiles. Like by the end of it, we're like throwing trash cans up in the air, like skeet, pull. That didn't really happen, but
hypothetically,
we have to shoot these things. So rather than send them back, let's give them to Ukraine. Let Ukraine shoot them at Russia. It saves us the disposal cost.
Right.
It's actually, and we get to buy new stuff, which we need anyway. We're going to replace this stuff. Some of our old tanks, our old armored personnel carriers, like M113, we're dumping them in the freaking ocean as artificial reefs.
Damn.
I like fish. Fish are great. But like, if we give those weapons to Ukraine can use them to kill Russians. So, we're not actually flying C-17s full of money and just parachuting it out over Ukraine. We're mainly giving them equipment, and weapons, and then they use them, and we get to buy new stuff, which creates American jobs.
Okay, that's interesting because I see a lot of headlines where we're donating hundreds of millions, but I didn't know it was in weapons.
Yeah, those hundreds of millions are really to pay companies to replace the weapons that we're giving them that we're going to have to destroy anyway.
Okay, so it's fueling our economy then.
I mean, look, we're not going to have a rip-roaring economy because we hired an additional 2,000 people to work at Raytheon.
Yeah.
But it is helping American jobs.
Okay. So when you see Trump saying he wants to pull out, how do you feel about that? Pull out of the war?
There's things that you say, and there's things that you actually do.
Right.
And the one thing about President Trump is that he was the first guy to send lethal aid to Ukraine. He sent javelins. One of the reasons Ukraine still exists today is that the Russian army came from Belarus, and they entered Kyiv, or they entered north of the country, and they were marching toward Kyiv, and they ran smack into the Javelin missile. Javelin is a fire and forget missile. I put that Javelin on the target, put the track gates on what I want to hit the safety, hit the trigger, and that missile will go toward that tank and destroy it.
Wow.
Doesn't care if the tank tries to run or hide or whatever. It'll find it. And Trump got these Javelin missiles to Ukraine. The previous president, President Obama, he sent like night vision goggles and blankets. Useful. We need they need night vision, but President Trump was the only person to send lethal aid. And I think that what President Trump knows, what's his biggest fear? What is Trump's biggest fear?
His biggest fear.
China.
Oh.
Right? China. And he knows that the best way to prevent China from invading Taiwan is to stand with Ukraine. Because if we don't support a country that's in Europe, how the hell are we going to support a country that's 6,300 miles away from anything? There's the tyranny of distance when dealing with Taiwan. We have to get all of these ships, all these weapons, all this aircraft, all these missiles, all these drones, 6,300 miles over to a tiny island. And China only has to get them 110
right next door,
miles. Yeah, right next door.
Wow. So he's looking at it strategically then.
Yeah. I think there's things that you say and there's things that you're actually going to do. And you look at, what's the Speaker of the House's name? It was
I don't know.
Mike, I want to say Mike Wilkinson. That's not it. But Speaker of the House, he got a CIA brief, and he walked out of that CIA brief a changed man. And he was like, okay, let's get this aid to Ukraine going.
Why? What was he saying before that?
It was the typical, we need to take care of problems at home. We need to close the border. We can do both. We could close the border tomorrow, right? We're big enough to do both.
Well, the border situation is getting pretty crazy.
So one of my biggest fears, and I love immigration. I mean, my family came to this country from Northern Ireland.
Oh, nice. Same with mine.
And Northern Ireland?
Yeah, my dad.
Really?
Yeah.
My dad? Is he Protestant?
Yeah, I got a passport and everything.
Yeah, I'm orange.
Yeah. I went to visit actually a few years ago. It was raining every day and windy, drinking everywhere.
I've often thought about like going to Northern Ireland, going to Lisburn, where my family is from. And there's my dad has never been back to Northern Ireland, and my family only told me about why he left once, and I've never
not much to do there. But I mean, if you got heritage there, I would check it out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know if my dad was a good guy or a bad guy.
Oh yeah, damn. Secretive man.
Well, back then, like if you were in like a Protestant militia, like they called maybe not such a good guy. I don't know. I've never really broached that subject with my dad. Right?
Wow.
But God, how did we get on that topic?
Our dads.
Yeah, I guess our dads. Yeah, but I don't know. I was talking about Northern Ireland. I don't know. What else you got for me?
Yeah, I forget what I even asked. Something about wars, but yeah, I don't know how we got into Ireland.
What's that?
Immigration.
Immigration. Yeah, I mean, I think immigration is great. We need immigration, but we should probably know who's coming in. And when you look at our border, one of the things that scares me is the number of Chinese and the number of Iranians coming across. Because there is a non-zero chance that you'd have a military-age male coming across to do something bad.
Oh, wow. I thought it was Mexicans mainly, so it's a lot of Chinese and Iranians.
I mean, so from what I understand, there's not a lot of Mexicans. What you have is there are a lot of people from like Guatemala, Honduras, a lot of places where there's gangs, not a lot of job opportunities. But the Chinese, I want to say it was like 250,000
Really?
Chinese. Yeah.
So they're just
I'm
walking
doing
up.
this from memory. Yeah. Like
Wow.
after COVID, like 250,000 Chinese just walked right across the border.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I'm half Chinese, but yeah, I want people to come legally. Like,
We
You know
should
what I mean?
probably know who these people are. Like, isn't that what defines a country, right? Like, all right, this is where your laws stop and our laws start. And I'm not saying don't come, but let's just kind of figure out who these people are without,
Yeah, we agree on that for sure.
Yeah.
What about there's talks of them being able to vote, these illegal immigrants? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, I don't really have I've never given that any thought.
Really?
Well, I mean, you have to be a citizen to vote, I think, right? Unless it's like maybe a town election or something.
Yeah, they're pushing on towns and counties, I believe.
Yeah, because you might have a green card, right? If you have a green card,
Can you vote? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, no idea.
I've given, there was this girl that I dated who she asked me once the darn subject. It was something political. She asked me some political question. I said, I don't know. Like, what do you think of the blah, blah, blah? I said, I put 0% of my brain to think of that. She's like, how can you not think of that? And I was like, how many road wheels does an M1 tank have? Because I know that. 14. You know why I know that? Because this is all I do. I read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Haaretz cover to cover every day. But I skip over like some articles I don't need to know what Taylor Swift is doing.
Yeah.
Don't care. But apparently there was going to be a chemical attack at a Taylor Swift concert. I read that article. That was pretty interesting. So I read about, the military, I read about defense, I read about intel stuff. What's going on with people with green cards voting? Not too up on that. I have a finite amount.
Yeah,
space
but when
in
you're
my brain.
reading these outlets, because Trump calls these fake news, are you just how do you approach that? I guess
New York Times can be hit or miss on military stories. I can usually pick out because they only have 8 people working for them who are ever in the military. This is out of an organization of I think 2,800 people. 8.
Wow.
Yeah, you have a better chance of getting I don't know if you gamble or not.
I don't.
Better chance of getting a straight in poker than you do of finding someone at the New York Times who was in the military. And that's why they screw up their military stories so badly. I did a whole video on that. New York Times or Wall Street Journal's a little bit better. Washington Post's a little bit better with military coverage. I don't really. I can usually spot fake news pretty darn easily, and I think one of the things we need to kind of emphasize is that fake news does not mean news that you don't like, right? Like there's news you don't like, and then there is genuine, honest to God fake news or news that has been manufactured,
Right.
And there is a big difference between those two things.
Makes sense.
And again, President Trump is a very bombastic, larger-than-life figure. He's going to say things that appeal to people who like him.
Where are you seeing the most misinformation and disinformation coming from right now? Is it from the media outlets or is it from social media? Is there
A lot of it's from social media. A lot of it depends. There are Russian accounts on social media that they spend all day trying to figure out, like, all right, how are we going to get people to believe our side of the story, right? Because Russia, they can't use a bomb to destroy a German artillery plant. If Germany is giving artillery shells to Ukraine, there's a couple of ways you can fight that. You can drop a bomb on that plant. All right, now NATO gets involved. You can do a cyber attack. NATO might or might not get involved, right? Or you could convince people in Germany that President Zelensky is he's a grifter and he is corrupt and he's stealing all your money. And so don't vote for someone who's going to give artillery shells to Zelensky. All three are the same effect, right?
Yeah.
The effect is no artillery munitions go to Ukraine. So Russia is constantly putting out fake information, constantly, because they consider it a part of their warfare.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I'm going to Ohio, and I'm going to talk about to a bunch of attorneys about how we can get the ball rolling on kinetically striking people who are disseminating disinformation in these bot farms.
Don't you think the U.S. does it too, though?
No,
Really?
no,
You don't think we put out any misinformation, disinformation?
no. I mean, we have Voice of America. That's one thing. So why do you do that? Why do you do the misinformation or disinformation? You do that because you don't have the kinetic strike abilities that we have. You don't have. We have 11 aircraft carriers. 11. Most countries don't even have one. We have 11 aircraft carriers. I've been on an aircraft carrier, and it's not just the aircraft carrier. You have 4 or 5 cruisers and destroyers following you, and you have a submarine.
Wow.
So it's not just the aircraft carrier. You know, when you see these aircraft carriers, there's a whole bunch of escorts around them as well. They might be like 2 miles away. You can't see them, but believe me, they're there, and they're providing radar coverage and missile coverage and stuff. That's how we take care of business. We bomb you, right? We're good at that. We're really good at that. You know, back in 1986, it was Muammar Gaddafi, who's the leader of Libya, the dictator of Libya. He bombed a nightclub in Germany, and then he destroyed a Pan Am jet over Scotland. Actually, I don't remember one came before the other, but President Reagan just bombed the crap out of Tripoli, and they actually went after Gaddafi personally. They actually hit one of his tents because he kind of lived like a Bedouin, you know, like I'm a Bedouin man, you know. Imagine like the president going camping, you know. So he would do that to prove how Bedouin he was, right?
Interesting.
So so we bombed Tripoli, and they shut up for like 20 years, you know. We're really good at that. We're really good at bombing people when they piss us off.
What about cyber attacks? Are we doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're doing 2 out of the 3.
Yeah, but actually spreading disinformation, it's almost like we're afraid of doing that, and I think some of that might be freedom of speech because we actually kind of believe in freedom of speech. That's been one of the biggest issues that I've had dealing with military lawyers about going after some of these disinformation farms. So what about freedom of speech? Well, they're a foreigner in a foreign country. They don't have freedom of speech. You know, if you are a civilian working at a munitions plant building bombs or building tanks, are you a lawful target? Yeah, that place that's building tanks is a lawful target. So if you're at a disinformation factory, is that a lawful target? Right. Yeah, they can change the outcome of a war. I don't see why it's not a lawful target. But for some reason, we really don't do that, and I think a lot of it's because we're just so focused on kinetics.
Don't you think we do it internally a little bit, though?
I mean, so what is branding, right? I mean, look at this Old Bay that I gave you, right? Yep. This can of Old Bay, right? I mean, I know exactly what I'm going to get. I'm going to get some deliciousness when I open this up and I sprinkle it on my fries, or I sprinkle it on my crab, right, or my popcorn. I'm going to get some deliciousness of that Old Bay. So a brand is a contract between a producer of a good and a consumer of a good, a contract of quality. I know exactly what I'm going to get when I open up that Old Bay, right? So I think what we do is branding, where America, land of the free, home of the brave, that's our brand, right? I definitely think we do that. But as for genuine mis or disinformation, no, I don't. We do branding.
Okay. Because Trump really attacked these outlets, so I just feel like there's some validity to it.
To what he's saying about...
just how they're painting him in a certain way and just spreading misinformation.
Oh, look, who becomes a reporter? Right? Like there was once a point where reporters were it was like a blue-collar profession, right? Now I think a lot of reporters become reporters, they get into journalism, because they want to have this, be in the proximity of power, right? And at a certain point, let's say you enter, I don't know, you got a job at the New York Times as a conservative or something.
Yeah.
I could see someone, maybe they were hired as the token conservative. I could see them maybe moving their politics a little bit because it's just easier that way to get along.
You get more views, too.
Yeah, you might get more views.
Well, negative headlines are proven to get way more views.
Absolutely. I mean, there was this company, it was called, it was Channel 3news.com. And this company basically faked an Arab name for this dude who stabbed a bunch of girls in England, in Southport, England. And I've already decided I'm going to find out who these people are and expose them.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's the train's just leaving the station on this one. But one British reporter, actually, I think she might have gotten to it before me. But these guys, their website, first I thought, oh, is this a Russian-run website that's spreading disinformation? And no, it's, I think it's an Indian and Pakistani-run website that's just designed to sell ads.
Wow. So they just want clicks.
So they just lie. They just want clicks. They just lie about stuff and get clicks.
Damn.
Oh, I'm going to shut them down.
You're going after these guys.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it. Ryan, it's been fun. Where can people find you and find out what you're up to?
You can find me on YouTube, Ryan McBeth Programming. I also have a Substack, Ryan McBeth. That's substack.com. I'm on Instagram is the real Ryan McBeth. And, feel free to join me and let's fight some disinformation.
Let's fight it, man. Cheers. Thanks for watching, guys,
Thank
as
you.
always. See you next time.